This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Kevin Tucker and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is August 15th, 2024. Jonathan Osborne here, as always, joined by my co-host, Kevin Tucker. Kevin is finally here. We have the schedule. The schedule has been released. What is going on, man? How are we doing?
Hey, a whole lot of fun things happened today. The schedule came out, which we always enjoy. We're also live right now on YouTube, which, we don't do that all the time, but we thought, schedule release day. Plus, we usually come out with episodes on Thursdays. So I think part of us was like, it may be late at Thursday, but we want to get this episode out on Thursday, reacting to the schedule. But anyway, this is fun. YouTube, people hanging out in the chat, thanks for being here. But yeah, this will be a good time for sure.
Yeah, we kind of the idea came to us later in the day. Well, we had talked about it this morning, do we want to go live? But then we had a Patreon thing that we were doing earlier. We weren't sure what time we were really going to be ready to do this. And then we were like, it doesn't really matter what time we go live. We can just say, hey, we're about to go live, and if people join, that's awesome. If not, that's awesome too. But yeah, we're going to be talking about the Orlando Magic schedule. NBA schedule was released league-wide today at 3 o'clock. Kevin Tucker took over the Twitter account and was tweeting out all of the highlights, really, of the Orlando Magic schedule. So if you haven't seen those already, you can go and check that out. But you can also listen to this episode that you're listening to now. We're going to talk about the release as well, the method of which the Orlando Magic social media team released and announced parts of the schedule. We're going to be joined by a special guest in just a little bit, Kevin. But before we talk about the schedule, we got some major Magic news earlier today. The Magic Together slogan, or the motto of the team, for the last several years, is gone, and in comes Make It Magic is going to be the new motto and mantra of the team moving forward. And that was released with a graphic. I don't know what the graphic means, but we saw a star in the A of the Magic with this. If you haven't seen this, you can go to all the Orlando Magic social media accounts and check it out. But it is not a star that we have seen before. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are talking about that, but they're also talking about the, Make It Magic, new marketing campaign. What are your thoughts on all of the Make It Magic, Kevin?
Well, you hit it. There's two sides of this, right? There's the slogan, which, is not uncommon. The Magic, like every other team, they come out with new slogans every few years. And as you said, we had Magic Together. I really liked Magic Together. I thought it was great. Make It Magic, I think, is going to be fine, too. I shared with our patrons earlier tonight on our Zoom call that, David Steele always likes to find ways to slide these slogans into his commentary. And so I'm really looking forward to hear how David Steele does that with Make It Magic, Anyway, that'll be fun. But then the other side is, yes, a little star appeared, but not just a star, the fact that it was the A, which has been missing from the current logo, that it was the A of Magic. It's as David Steele would say, I don't know if it's anything, but it's definitely something, and so we'll see. It is interesting, especially because it does look different. I don't know what it means, but it could be anything. We'll see.
It's so different. We've never seen it before. I don't think it's nothing. I think it's something. I think it's anything. Fans have been calling for a rebrand for the last, several years, especially that volume got turned all the way up to 10 last year with the classic edition jersey and the floor coming back and everything like that. So I don't know if that means that, but I know a lot of people are going to be hopeful for that. When it comes to the slogan, I really did like Magic Together. I saw a lot of people today when they're sharing their opinion about Make It Magic that they were just happy that Magic Together is gone. And I was a little bit surprised by that. I thought that was a little bit, maybe more popular than it really was. But I like Make It Magic. The messaging behind it, and this is from the official press release that the Magic put out. So this is from Orlando Magic Executive Vice President of Marketing and Social Responsibility, Shelly Wilkes. I'm just going to read this quick paragraph. It says, "We are so excited to share our new rally cry with our great city. In everything we do, the Magic organization strives to make it magic, and it truly is a collective effort. It takes all of us coming together to make the atmosphere at the games magic, to make our community magic, and to make every interaction and experience with our fans a moment of magic in their lives." To me, the first thing that comes to mind when I read that is like the Disney, kind of thing, which the Magic are never going to be able to get away from. Like, let's just, that just sort of is what it is. But when I read that and I think of like making magic in their lives, like, at least for me, that is really what this team has given me in terms of like the experiences at games, other, community events and other things that the Magic do in the community. Like, that's what made all of us Magic fans at one point or another, is that there was a moment of, pun intended, magic in our lives. So I like it. It definitely could be much worse.
Yeah.
We've had much worse.
We have had much worse. Other teams have had way worse. And so, yeah, I'm cool with Make It Magic. Again, I'm excited to see what the team does with it.
Okay, one thing that we wanted to talk about, because obviously it's a topic of conversation all around Magic social media, but not just Magic social media. Like, national media was talking about the Magic. They didn't only have one release video, they had two release videos today, both of which were incredible. If you have not seen those, definitely go to the Orlando Magic social media pages to check those out. One was like they just took like every meme of the last couple of years and threw it into, one video and found a way to make that relative to other teams. But the one that was really my favorite was the Magic Verse video that they put out, which they went through like all different kinds of like superheroes and cartoons and, anime style, and to help, release the schedule. So I thought that was amazing. I know Kevin thought it was amazing. And somebody reached out to us today when we were like, hey, we think this is awesome. He reached out and said, hey, I would love to join the show and just sort of give the people that were involved in that process their flowers. So Kevin, we have a special guest.
Hey.
It's Tony. Hey, Tony, welcome.
Hey, wait, before we start, can we just give our flowers to, Kevin and Jonathan for covering the Magic and just come up with every discussion under the sun for the last 4 months. But now that Magic schedule is out, we can finally get back to discussing what we're most excited about the season. But yeah, of course, just clap.
Oh,
I'm
please.
using the chat, of course.
You're too kind. Well, actually, speaking of chat, Dylan Holden with the super chat here. Thank you so much for that. He says, cheers to the New Year's, boys. That's right. New season on the horizon. Thanks for that super chat, Dylan. But yeah, Tony, obviously there's, like Jonathan said, a lot of people talking about this today. Again, not just Magic fans, but even non-Magic fans. Like, it was so cool to see. And I can only imagine like the amount of hours that go into something like this. Again, not just one, but two, and not just the videos. There's also a whole ton of like graphic stuff that you guys put out. And so it was very cool to have you here because we just want to hear about it. Like, what, just kind of in general terms, what is that process like? Who are some of the people maybe behind the scenes that go into making just a really cool rollout like we saw today?
Yeah, of course. Happy to talk about it. That's a great question. Coming from last year, especially our 35th anniversary, just with the TV guide itself and going through different Nickelodeon shows and touching on a lot of nostalgia, that's an expectation and standard that we set ourselves to, because we always want to go be perfect for what we do. And we spent like the last 3 or 4 months just trying to like brainstorming a lot of ideas, going back and forth, thinking about what's impossible, but also answering what's impossible that we can make it possible. So I know that sounds very confusing, but it's a huge process and a lot of things go into it. And I hate to be the one to speak about it because I know Owen Fasolis, amazing guy. Hopefully that someday you all get to meet him. But he grew up a Magic fanatic. He grew up in Orlando, hometown kid. Like, if you looked at our photos last year, that room that we built, literally all the collectibles of what he had, that was his Magic memorabilia.
Wow.
He's a huge Magic fan, and he happened to be my boss and also an amazing illustrator. He's been doing it forever. And so we wanted to really touch the idea of the multiverse and just really, especially with Deadpool, Wolverine, how they go about nostalgia, No Way Home, and all these incredible things that fans love to see. It's a process that really takes a long to hours. And I can't speak for Owen himself, but I know that he has carpet tunnel. He needs a rest soon. He needs to go on vacation soon. But yeah, he just did a lot of great work, and it's, a lot of hours. And it also gives credit to Chris Brennan, who's also our senior motion graphic designer, and Eric Gonzalez, who also is another motion graphic designer in our team. So they're just spending countless hours working frame by frame, just doing all these incredible things and trying to think about where it works best when it comes to Easter eggs, points that we saw throughout the season with Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson. Talk about the Atlanta Magic theme song, of course. And mostly shout out to my guy on the Brain Rot video, TJ Hensley, man. He just went crazy with the memes, and it's just so fun seeing how his mind works because he's always challenged by how can I be even funnier than funnier before, and he always raises that bar. And all of us too is just really just giving each other our flowers and knowing everyone has a chance to really step up in their own way, and that's what I love about working with our Magic social team. So, but yeah.
So we're joined by Tony Huynh, who, if you're not familiar, he's a graphic designer for the Orlando Magic and is a huge part of the Orlando Magic social media teams. Tony, it's so obvious. Like, we talk about how incredible everybody is within the organization, but like, you're just another example of that because you could be on here like talking about all the cool stuff that you did and got to contribute to this project, but here you are talking about like all of your teammates, and you want to make sure that they get the proper attention. One of the coolest things for me about that release video that Owen had such a big creative hand in was the fact that you guys got Cole and JI, to voice over a lot of that. What was that process like? Like, what was the pitch to those guys to get them involved?
Man, it was funny. So it was like the beginning of August, like late July probably. I had no idea what we were going about the schedule release. I knew it was happening from an illustration standpoint where we're doing all this, but Owen, he pulled out from his bag like a script. It's like this thick, like just of words that he's gonna give Cole and someone else, and it's like whoever was available at the time. And Cole just happened to be Orlando. He was so down to do it. He bought into the idea, and to see it all paid off with both him and Ji, just I think it just goes to show the trust that we built with them and the trust that they have in us to really make content that really revolves around them and resonate with our fans. So it's so cool to see because I know Owen had to go over to the training facility and just like get all their mics up and just say, hey, you say this line, this line. It was just crazy. And Owen did half of like the audios for other characters and all their multiverse stuff.
Wow.
And the way how he just kind of like mix it all, I'm like, man, that guy wears all kind of hats, and it's incredible about the work he does. And I'm just so happy to see that his work is paid off and that he got his proper followers because one of the most humble guys. And if you don't know, and for those who are listening, he does most of our play the songs videos like after we win every post game. And so as much as we give him ideas, he's the one that's putting it all together and just making sure it all works within our social team. So, but yeah, man, just credit to him. And I know how much it means to him to like do something as big as this. And, we'll definitely be spending some time away for the next month or so, just kind of like, reflecting back and just kind of like taking it easy for now before we, wrap it up for the next, 6 to 7 months. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually leading into what I was going to ask. We know you don't get the schedule a whole lot earlier than we do, right? But I know you guys obviously worked on it a lot before, the schedule came out today. So like, how far back does this process go? Like, when do you guys start even just the creative process of how could we unveil the schedule to like actually hands-on, we're creating graphics, we're creating the videos, whatever. Like, how far back does this process go?
I mean, it goes back as far as we want it to be, but I think this year we really, started really talking about it in July when everyone's away and kind of thing. But, we just all happened to be in the office together, just shooting the shoot and just kind of like talking about ideas about what we can do to really top it. And just, I will say a lot of times we felt very, very uncreative and, just kind of going into an endless loophole about things like this. But yeah, that's months in advance, even a month beforehand. And us finding out the schedule as soon as everyone else did and just kind of like scrambling to make it quick changes and all this stuff. So, we always have an idea in mind that, we always reflect back on the season, this past season about like, what connections can we make, even with the Spider-Verse and the Ninja Turtles being in New York, all that stuff is really details that we think about prior and just something that we want to include in those big scenes that really make sense with the cartoon that goes along with it.
Now, Tony, this episode, Kevin and I are going to be breaking down the entire schedule, but 5 national television games. Like, how excited were you and the rest of the team to find out that, like, the Magic are going to be on national television quite a bit this year?
hey, bring your ass. It's about our time. They're still sleeping on us. I think, you know, all these 5 games are great, but we want more. We're hungry for more, and I know Magic fans feel that too. What I want personally want is I want to see a 6 man show, quarter dreams game before a national televised game. When they get to see everything get set up too for ESPN or TNT and all that great stuff, man. It's very exciting for us. We're excited, but we know, and most importantly, the fans are excited. And I think, we're just getting started here in Orlando. People are going to find out sooner or later. And you're sleeping. Just stay on that side when we're down here in the Eastern Conference Final when no one expects it. And yeah, we're going to go from there. But you guys know that, so yeah.
Hey, we know it absolutely. But yeah, dude, thanks for coming on here chatting about the unveiling today. Like I said, it was awesome. Like, pass it along to the rest of the team. Like, I'm sure they've seen it, but like, so well received on social media. Again, not just from Magic fans, but from around the NBA. It was really, really cool to see. And I know maybe this is a question. I don't know, but I was gonna let you go, but it turned into a question. Is there a sense of like competition between the teams? Because like, everyone's trying to do something really cool. I know you're talking about topping yourself last year, but do you look around the rest of the league and go, oh, that was cool? Or like, oh, we definitely did better than that team. You know what I'm saying? Like, is there any bit of that? Maybe a little bit, Tony?
Of course, for me, I'm very competitive. I take things personal a lot when I shouldn't have. But I will say, I mean this in the most Helmo way possible. I think us just finishing fourth among social teams in the NBA, that's behind the Lakers, the Warriors, and of course the Suns. Who all have these superstars. But hey, look at us. Like I said earlier, we hold ourselves to a high standard, high expectation. Like, for me, I know everything has to be perfect from my side of it when it comes to like taking photos or doing graphics. Like, everything has to look good, and no mistakes can be left behind and anything of that stuff. But that just goes to show you how much we care about this, how much we love putting out content especially for fans to relate to, and just really getting to resonate and just speak in a way where not most teams are, where we tend to be more genuine and decide where who's coming from behind it, and then also understanding our fan base and what do you guys crave for. And I know there's a lot of things right now. Of course, we can't get to that, but that's another discussion for another day. But we're very excited to just unveil everything, just see it all play out, and just see all the hard work pay for itself. But yeah, man, we're excited for what's to come this season.
So we were gonna let you go, but I do have one more here.
No,
obviously, like
please
last
ask.
year,
I love
the social campaign for the 35th anniversary, like, you guys did such a great job. But I know it's hard to follow that up, but like, you got something planned to try to keep the momentum going this year?
Honestly, we'll figure it out day by day. Someday, I actually might have an idea tonight at like 1 a.m. in the morning, or tomorrow at like 10 p.m. So who knows? It's constantly forever changing. Things are growing, but I will say there's a lot of excitement coming from the city of Orlando, and just the trust that we have in our leadership to really, really be chefs in the kitchen and just put out their best plate yet. And they trust us from our vision standpoint, and I'm so grateful for that. But especially, mostly Magic fans, just seeing the result pay off, and seeing that you guys love it, and seeing that everyone else has such a positive, feedback on it. It just goes to show, like, this is what it's all about, and it makes us only motivated to do more, to think of more funny content, to think of more things that are really dope that people might love to see, whether it's Paolo or Franz, or cool things that they're doing, and also just being as funny as we can, because yeah, I mean, for 82 games, you got to figure out how to constantly stay relevant, and also to be constantly growing and evolving as a team. So yeah.
All right, for real now, Tony. Yeah, that's like all the memes. For real now, though, we do appreciate you coming on here and giving us a little bit of insight behind the curtain, if you will, to kind of show off, the really awesome team that is the Orlando Magic social and, media team and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for letting our listeners and viewers know a little bit about that. And I guess we'll be in touch sometime this season. All right.
For sure.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Tony.
You.
All right.
See you, man.
Much love, brother. Thank you. I love that.
Oh,
guy.
that was
I really,
awesome.
really do.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah. So again, if you're just joining us right now, we're live on YouTube. We don't always do this for our episodes of Six Man Show, but hey, it's a special day. Schedule's out. A lot of fun things happening, so we thought we'd hop on here and kind of check in. Yeah, it's been a while. Really quick, we do have another super chat. This one's from Luis Rosario. He says 52-30, and 4th seed is our basement this year. I love that. I also love the super chat. Thank you, Luis. Very loyal viewer and super chatter here at the Six Man Show. M. Rahim83 says Tony the GOAT. Absolutely. Another GOAT that we have is Jam Hot Chicken. Jam Hot Chicken is one of the sponsors of the Six Man Show. They're proudly serving the city beautiful. Jam Hot Chicken, bringing jams, culture, and hot chicken to the heart of Winter Park. They're awesome. They're die-hard Magic fans. Don't forget, folks, back during the playoffs, Game 3, the first home game of the playoffs, they closed early so that their team could go to the stinking game. That's how serious they are about their Magic fanhood, and that's why we're so pumped to be partnered with them yet again for this upcoming season. You can follow them at Jam Hot Chicken on all social media and check out jamhotchickenfl.com to access the menu, online ordering, and all things Jam Hot. And as we've been sharing, the biggest breaking news with Jam Hot right now is they're now available on Uber Eats for delivery locally to the Winter Park area. So yeah, definitely check them out. Again, at Jam Hot Chicken on all social media.
All right, can I be honest with you guys? I'm going to be honest with you guys. We're being honest. Kevin and I are trying to do this full time eventually. Maybe not soon, but eventually we would love it if this could be like the full-time gig where we can, spend full time all the time creating Magic content, finding ways to, make the show better, make our content better. And the best way to help us to get there is to join our Patreon. You can find us at patreon.com/the6manshow. What our Patreon is basically different levels of tiers where you can join and get different benefits like access to our Discord channel where we have over 70 Magic fans right now basically talking Magic basketball 24/7. They were talking about the schedule all day today once that released, and things like joining our Patreon Zooms, which we had a Patreon Zoom call literally right before we started to do this here. So to help us get to that goal of being able to do this full time, again, we would really appreciate your support. You can find us at patreon.com/the6manshow. Every episode, we give a special shout out to our Hall of Fame and Elite tier patrons. So I am going to go through that quickly here, and we'll go ahead and start with the Court Cousins, Drew Gooden, Armin, Carson Tulo, Ellis, Jonathan Borges, Normal, Magic Player History, Gabe Gaines, Michael Martin, Jamel Miller, Michael Salapong, Donkey Punch Day, Paolo and Francis Warren, Pierre A. Dylan Holden, Mr. Mikey, Eduardo Sanchez, Daniel, Bobby Skinner, Goody 93, Teddy Sylvia, Dalek Lopez, Fuchsia, Bill Fulton, Edmund Lagone, Jose Esquilin, Caleb Pete, Cannibalism Time, Mr. TV, ESPN Really Sucks, Gear 95 Shred, Junior Bruce, Halfreakin, Shahin 177, Bobby the Don, Himlo, Ben Himro, RM Prov 221, Ray Pastrana, Magic Kid 714, Mysterious Mosley, Irish Magic, Mike Austin, Lampy, Random Hustle, Only Franz, Maria, Keith Wallace, Fritz, Bruv Sal, Kason Green, Santi Leon, Kane Neckler, The Distract, Chansu, Tom Gadsden, Dead Air, Richard Tuttle, Jeremiah Quintero, Magic Wire, Debo 1980, Magic Matt, Michael Thompson, Mama Richmond, Next Snapple, What's Off Playoffs 2024, Dylan Fay, David Duffy, Smith Sheik, Ship Sinks, Bueno Time, Stantino 1995, Suggs Muggs, Daniel Anderson, Barry McElcaney, and Jose Marrero. Again, a big thank you to all of our patrons that help make each and every episode possible. You can find us at patreon.com/the6manshow.
Jonathan, in the clutch, live on air. You clutched that. Atta boy.
I've done it a million times.
I know, but
I almost remember it.
The pressure's
by heart.
on a little more when you're live to the world, and you crushed it. So way to go.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. All right, let's get down to business to discuss the schedule. So again, the schedule came out today, 3 o'clock Eastern. Kevin Tucker was ready with the Twitter fingers, going crazy, posting as many updates as he could and highlights about the schedule. Did such a great job with that. We're going to go through and touch on some of the highlights first, and then we'll really do the deep dive. Would love to hear your all thoughts on the schedule in the chat as we're going through this here. First of all, shout out to Big Ball Data. Big Ball Data is basically a website that every year when the schedule goes out, within an hour or so, they usually have Excel files that you can download to see exactly, who's playing, what time, how many days rest you're going to have, your opponent's going to have, what arena it's in. It really helps us as we're trying to go through and pick what we think the wins and losses are going to be. So some of the things that we're talking about today are coming directly from Big Ball Data. So a big shout out to them. First of all, the season opener, Kevin, Wednesday, October 23rd at Miami, 7:30 p.m. Of course, we're starting the year against Miami. Would love if that would have been at home, but we are on the road. But yeah, what better way to start the year than with the in-state rival Miami Heat, who, they're the second best team in Florida now. I think we can comfortably say that.
For sure.
The home opener, the first home game of the year, is going to be that Friday, October 25th. The Magic are taking on the Brooklyn Nets at home at 7 o'clock Eastern. This has been a gripe. Magic fans have been looking forward to this specific detail about the schedule pretty much since last year ended. 5 national TV games, Kevin, and we'll talk a bit about those here. We'll take a pause, but let me go through these really quickly. The first is going to be November 1st at Cleveland. That game will be on ESPN. The next is going to be December 3rd at New York at the Knicks. That game is going to be on TNT. Then just a couple weeks later, we'll be on TNT on December 19th to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder at home. That is going to be the first nationally televised home game of the year. Then on January 17th, the Magic will be in Boston to take on the Celtics on ESPN. And then for now, our final nationally televised game of the year is going to be February 25th at home versus the Cleveland Cavaliers on TNT. And then, the Magic have 4 NBA TV games as well this year.
Yeah. So first off, as we always do, I got to interrupt for a super chat. Sam, we know him. Sam, 51 and 31 this season, 3rd seed. Let's go Magic. Thanks, Sam. Won't be long, Sam. Hanging out here. Anyway, thank you, Sam, for doing that. That's awesome. Appreciate that.
Real quick, if you don't know, Sam is going to be doing some post-game lives this year.
That's right.
So if you're a frequenter of those, you will become more familiar with Sam in the given next months here.
That's right. It'll be awesome. So regarding some of the things you talked about, season opening in Miami, it's fine. I've come on this show before many times and said I think in the NBA the rule should be you either start or end the year at home, and the fact that we don't do either, we haven't talked about that yet, but we also end the season on the road. A little bit of a bummer, but last season we started at home and ended at home, and so I don't know if I can really complain after we got both last year. So anyway, starting at Miami, I think that's fine. The national TV games, it is a little bit interesting. The OKC one you just mentioned, we did that last year, and that didn't go as well. So I'm really hoping we get some revenge on TNT again this year at home. But yeah, all in all, having 5 national TV games is pretty cool. And yes, we don't count the NBA TV games. But isn't it interesting, though, that we have 5 nationally televised games, and we have fewer NBA TV games than we do actually nationally televised games? We only have 4. I thought that was interesting.
Take that,
anyway.
John Hollinger.
Yeah, take that. But yeah, good stuff.
Well, I find it interesting that 2 of the 5 nationally televised games are against the Cleveland Cavaliers, which all of you obviously remember the Magic lost in 7 games to the Cavs last year in the first round of the playoffs. So the NBA sort of took notice, even though it doesn't seem like many people nationally were watching that series because it was on NBA TV. But I think they picked up that, for the most part, that was a pretty chippy physical series, and it was a fun series between those 2 teams. So, they're trying to egg on a little bit of a rivalry with us and the Cavaliers, it seems like. And, hey, as long as we still have Mo Wagner, they still have George Niang, I think there's the potential that, those games could be a little bit chippy. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah,
that should be fun. Yeah, I'm curious to see how that carries over into the next season. I'm sure some of it will. And I will say this. I don't know about the Cavs because obviously they won that series, but the Magic will be looking for revenge on November 1st. Like, on the road, place they didn't win last year in that series, they'll be reading they'll be looking for blood for sure.
Really looking forward to that. Now, we knew about the NBA Cup games, but just want to point those out again. The NBA Emirates Cup games, the Magic's home games are going to be November 12th versus the Charlotte Hornets and November 15th versus the Philadelphia 76ers. And then on the road will be November 29th at Brooklyn and December 3rd. Again, we talked about that game versus the New York Knicks. That game is going to be on TNT. The schedule that was released today includes 80 regular season games because the Magic will play at least 2 more regular season games because of the NBA Cup. If they make it to the knockout stage, we'll talk a little bit about that. The knockout cup stage, the quarterfinals will be December 12th and 11th. And then the semifinals will be December 14th in Vegas if the Magic make it all the way to the NBA Cup championship game. That 83rd game does not count for your record or for your stats, but that game would be December 17th in Vegas as well. So when you look at, there's like a little bit of a gap in the Magic schedule in December. That's why, because if you don't make it to the knockout round, then you're going to be playing other teams that didn't make it to the knockout round, and they'll be adding 2 games to the schedule. So that stretch in December, we don't know what that schedule looks like until those group stage games end.
Can I just add something really fast to that? Going into that stretch in December that we don't know because it's a mystery, this whole stretch of NBA Cup group stage, stuff with Brooklyn and New York got filled in, obviously. It's a weird stretch that we're basically spending up in the Northeast there. It's Brooklyn, New York, Philly, Philly. A 5-game stretch where you're just going a few hundred miles away from each other there over that stretch before you get into the NBA Cup quote-unquote break. But I thought that was interesting. I was curious how they were going to surround those 2 games up there, and that's how they did it. Basically, the Magic are going to live up in the Northeast for that stretch, which I think is very interesting. Back-to-back games against Brooklyn, then New York, then back-to-back in Philly. It's kind of interesting.
Let's talk about some of the, everybody asks, what's the longest homestand? What's our longest road trip? Let's talk about that. The Magic's largest homestand this year is going to be 7 games. And this is a little bit tricky because when you look at the schedule, it looks like this, but there are going to be those NBA Cup games sprinkled in. So, again, we don't know what's going to be home, away. But as it is now, the Magic have home games scheduled from December 8th to December 29th against Phoenix, Oklahoma City, Miami, Boston, Miami, and then the Knicks again. For a 7-game stretch there, as it is on the schedule now, that's a pretty tough stretch, Kevin.
Yeah, that's talk about homestands there. I don't want to say it's as tough as it gets, but it's up there. Because where does that one start? OKC. Yeah, OKC after the NBA Cup break. OKC at home, that's one we just talked about on TNT. Miami, Boston, Miami again, New York. Oh, by the way, that's a back-to-back. Miami, New York, back-to-back. December 26, 27, Merry Christmas to us. And then you turn around with Brooklyn, obviously the most winnable game of that stretch. But yeah, not easy. Some games in there are winnable. I think, obviously, Miami, very winnable. Brooklyn, very winnable. But that other stretch, that's going to be tough. Again, highlighted with that OKC game, a Celtics game, a Heat game, a Knicks game. It's just, I'll put it this way. That will be not just a difficult stretch. That will be a sellout stretch. Like all those high-profile teams. It's going to be a very busy place, Kia Center, during the holidays for sure.
And then the other 6-game homestand that we have that probably will end up being like the true longest homestand of the season is from February 21st through March 4th. And that's versus Memphis, Washington, Cleveland, Golden State, Toronto, and Toronto. If you're looking for like your most winningest homestand of the season, this is probably where it's going to be. Now, Memphis to me is a bit of a question mark because they were so bad last year but suffered so many injuries. Are they just going to go like right back to where they were a couple of seasons ago? Are they going to struggle a little bit? I do think that's a question mark, but it feels like you have to find a way probably to win at least 4 of those 6 games at home during that stretch.
Yeah, for sure. And let's not forget, up until last season, Golden State hadn't played well in Orlando. Now, we're not going to talk about last year's game.
They didn't really play that well until the end.
That's true. That's true. They didn't play well in Orlando last year, but we kind of gave that game away. But yeah, so I don't think the Magic are going to look at this schedule and think they're scared of Golden State, especially no Klay Thompson there. Definitely the most winnable consecutive stretch of home games there, a 6-game homestand with a lot of winnable games there, including again another rematch against the Cavs on TNT at home, which will be fun.
And then the longest road trip of the year is 6 games. It starts January 27th and finishes up February 6th. It's Miami. Like you literally cannot find 2 teams further apart than this. Miami all the way to Portland, then down to Utah, over to Golden State, up to Sacramento, and then back over to Denver. That Denver game is a back-to-back for us, but it's also a back-to-back for Denver, but they'll be home. That's the 3rd game in 4 nights for us and a back-to-back. But again, it is a back-to-back for both teams. But Denver will have the luxury of being at home already. But again, Kevin, another long West Coast road trip where you have Denver the last game of the road trip.
Tale as old as time. Yeah, that's the way it goes. And last year was the same thing. Like you said, Sacramento before the Denver game. It wasn't a back-to-back last year. But if you remember last year, that was the double overtime Sacramento heartbreaker there, and then 48 hours later you play in Denver where you have 8 healthy players. And so the NBA gifted us with that same exact schedule, except they made it worse. They made it a back-to-back this time. So thank you to the NBA for that. Also, going back to what you said about Miami to Portland, I sometimes get on here and make outlandish statements. I'm going to make another one. I would be willing to bet we are the only team in the NBA that goes Miami to Portland this season, except maybe Portland. If they go to Miami and then come home or whatever, or vice versa, Miami to Portland is bonkers. There is an extra day between it, but like you said, you literally can't get a farther trip than Miami to Portland. And so, once again, shout out to the NBA. I will say, a little sneak peek to later, there's not a whole lot I'm going to complain about with this, though. We'll get into the good parts of the schedule later, but I'll complain about that and maybe 1 or 2 other things, but not a whole lot this year.
Yeah, going back to that stretch, so January 27th, you play in Miami at 7:30. So they'll wrap that game up probably around 10 o'clock local time, and then by midnight 1 a.m. they'll be on a plane probably to Portland, be there early. So they'll have probably a whole day off in Portland to recuperate, but it's still a pretty crazy road trip to start it off like that. I wanted to talk about some of the like strength of schedule stuff that has come out. So per ESPN, amongst playoff teams, the Magic have the toughest schedule in the league if we're basing it off of last year's like the opponent win percentage, right? But per the residual, the Magic are tied for the second easiest schedule because their strength of schedule takes rest advantages into account, which I would counter with last year, rest advantage was a bad thing for the Orlando Magic. So I don't know. It seems like in terms of opponent win percentage, yes, the Magic, obviously they have the toughest schedule amongst playoff teams. But I just feel like, in previous years when we would look at some of these stretches, like, man, I don't know where the wins are going to come. I am just really confident that the Magic are going to be able to beat up on the bad teams this year like they did last year. And they are good enough to beat any of the good teams on any given night. So when we look at these tough stretches, I don't necessarily see them as this gauntlet where if you have like 16 games in a row that are really tough, like against playoff teams, where we would have been happy to win 6 of them a couple of years ago. Now I think we should be expecting to at least go 500 in those types of stretches. Like if you're playing the best of the best teams in the league over any course of the schedule here, like I think it's fair for us to assume that the Magic will at least be able to split those games.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. It's interesting to me. You and I haven't talked about just about any of this, by the way, before this. We really kind of wanted to save our conversations for the show here. The ESPN thing is interesting. I don't want to say I don't believe them, but sometimes I don't believe ESPN because if you think about it, the Magic are in the same division as the Hornets and the Wizards, and they played the Nets 4 times. And so
the Hawks.
And the Hawks, right? And so the fact that they say we have the
Heat.
Well, yeah, and the Heat. We have the toughest strength of schedule among playoff teams. That seems a little interesting to me. I'll have to look more into that. But I don't want to totally discount them, but sometimes I do discount ESPN because I'm a Florida State fan. Let's see. Yeah, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah. When it comes to, those stretches, I think for sure there's a lot of winnable games. You talk about the rest, Jonathan. The fact that the Magic sometimes last season struggled with having rest. Who knows why that is? Because a young team, who knows? But the fact that this year they only have one game that has 3 days or more of rest going into it. It's a game against Milwaukee late in the season. Obviously there's the All-Star break. That's rest. Opening night, that's rest, obviously. And right now, because of the NBA Cup, there's that gap in December. But you take away those 3, there's only one game with super extended rest. Every game, except for that one, is 2 days or less fewer of rest, I guess I should say. And so, if that trend continues, that should be good for the Magic as well. I kind of mentioned their strength of schedule. When you look at, the NBA schedule, you play most of the teams in your conference 4 times. There are a handful of teams that you don't. The teams that the Magic are not playing 4 times, the teams that the Magic are playing 3 times, I guess is a better way to put it, this season. 2 of them are bad, Chicago and Detroit, right? So you would like to play them maybe 4 times. That'd be nice. However, the Magic are only playing Cleveland, New York, and Milwaukee 3 times this season. So that is another thing that potentially leans in the Magic's favor when you look at this strength of schedule and potentially the outlook for this team the rest of the year. So again, like I mentioned, all those really, really bad teams, except for Detroit, being, your Brooklyns, your Charlottes, your Washingtons, potentially Atlanta, we'll see how they do. The Magic do play them 4 times each this year, which I think bodes really, really well for this team.
And going back to some of the rest advantage, so again, per positive residual, the Magic are tied for 10th most games with a rest advantage over their opponent 11 games. Again, we talked about how rest advantage for this team, may not necessarily be the best thing, but you hope another year older, another year wiser, another year experienced, adding Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, a guy that knows, like, if you want to be one of the very best teams in the league, you have to bring it every single night. Maybe he'll have a positive effect on that. But the Magic are tied for the second least games with a rest disadvantage. So we really shouldn't have many excuses in terms of like, oh, this team was tired and so on and so forth. Maybe that last year you could argue at times like was a fair argument to be made there. So in terms of rest, Magic, they did okay. What is it? I think it's 13 back-to-backs this season, which I believe is somewhere like middle of the pack, amongst the NBA. So not a lot of gripes this year with the schedule.
Yeah, and if I can add just a little bit of context, what Jonathan's talking about, third in rest disadvantage. That's 8 games, like he said, with rest disadvantage. But what that does for compared to the rest of the league, a team like New Orleans had 6 games with rest disadvantage. They're first in the league, or I guess best in the league. So you're only 2 games back of the best rest disadvantage. But the worst team is 13 games. Milwaukee has 13 games rest advantage. So that's 5 additional games that they have the disadvantage. When you look at the advantage side of things, again, Magic are in the top half basically of the league with 11. But first is 15, so you're only 4 games back of the best. But the worst in the league is New Orleans with 4. So you are 7 games better. Yeah, by the way, let that sink in. New Orleans has 4 games where they have a rest advantage in an 82-game season. They got royally screwed. I feel bad for New Orleans. But all I had to
Somebody today shared a quote, I think, from Adam Silver, something like, they were going to try to cut down teams like it being the first or second night or the third and 4 nights, when you're playing a nationally televised game.
Right.
So I don't know that it's a complete coincidence that the Magic's increase in nationally televised games, they're also, having, more games where they're rest advantage or less games where they're rest disadvantaged.
Yeah. But just to kind of give a little context, like the Magic aren't, high up there in rest advantage, but they're only 4 games back of the top spot. But as far as rest on the opposite end of that, they are 7 games better than the worst one. So again, I keep saying this. The Magic, the NBA did not screw the Magic this year. They've done it for years. They didn't do it this time, okay? For a lot of reasons, those being some of them. I'm feeling good about where we are in this. And that's not normally the case on schedule day. There's some things that always excite me. But when I look at the whole of the schedule, I go, holy crap, there are some stretches that are brutal. And it's the NBA. Of course there are going to be that. But when you look at the whole and you look at how it could have gone, again, looking like a team like New Orleans or whatever, I'm just like, wow, the NBA didn't screw us over. This is great. We made it. Here we are.
All right, just a couple other things that I want to touch on before you and I, we haven't really shared too many thoughts with one another about, the schedule and the way that we think things might break down because we want to save it for the show. But something that you and I always pay attention to each year is, the games by day of the week. Mm-hmm. So how many times we play on Monday? How many times we play on Tuesday? So the Magic play 13 times on Monday, 7 times on Tuesdays, 14 times on Wednesday, 11 times on Thursday, 14 times on Friday, 8 times on Saturday, and 13 times on Sunday. We always look right to Wednesday and Sunday because that's when we record. So usually what that always means is that we're recording late into the night after a game. Right. We usually don't start recording until at least 10:30, 11 o'clock. And if it's a West Coast game, it's even later than that, which I think you told me earlier.
There's
we
two.
Have 2 this year.
Right, there's a 10
last
p.m.
Year it felt like we had 10 of those.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But yeah, we had a 10 p.m. This year we have a 10 p.m. and the game at the Intuit Dome against the Clippers is on a Wednesday, which is a 10:30 tip-off, which means the game will be over at 1. We'll start the show at 1:30. It's going to be a long one. But hey, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, so if you're a Magic fan and you're interested in watching every game this year, whoever is in your life, your significant other, if they want to make plans, tell them, hey, Tuesday and Saturday are really going to be the best days for me over the course of the next 6 months. That's what I'm going to be telling my wife. Hey, you want to do something, let's pick a Tuesday or a Saturday night. We want to have date night. And hey, shout out to Doc too, saying please hit the like button. Yeah, if you're watching here on YouTube, helps out the algorithm, helps other Magic fans or people maybe that might become Magic fans find us. So
yeah, we don't do this a whole lot, but if you are still watching this show or if you're listening to this show, something that helps us out a lot, like Jonathan said, hit the like button. If you're new here, hit subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those kinds of things, leave us a review, 5 stars. And, if we're not a 5-star show, maybe give us 4. If that's what you think is necessary, that's fine. But yeah, leave us a review on there. That's always super helpful. Again, helps other Magic fans find the show, and we're always grateful if you do that.
When it comes to reviews, yes, we love 5 stars, and like the outro asks for 5 stars. But the number one thing that I ask more than anything, if you're going to leave us a rating and review, please make sure that your review matches your rating. Because we have some like really good reviews that have like a 1-star rating. It's like, okay, just because there was one little thing about the show that you didn't like, I don't think it warranted a 1-star. But yeah, if you're gonna hate all the way, don't give us like a backhanded compliment there. So, okay, Kevin, let's talk about the schedule. I mean, I know we're talking about the schedule, but when I look at this schedule and I started going through, we're really going to be talking about like our predictions here, and I started marking like the wins and the losses. I have never felt so seen and judged by myself. I was going through this. I'm like, man, how much of a freaking homer am I that I just keep marking all of these wins? And then when I got to the end of that and I tallied up like my win and loss total, I was just like, there's no way. Now, this was our first pass through the schedule. Maybe if I went through it right now, it might be a little bit different. I don't want to give the number away right now, but Kevin, like, what was your experience in going through the schedule here and trying to predict how the Magic are going to fare this year?
Yeah, I had a very similar experience to you in where I didn't really, first off, back up how I did this. I didn't really think, I used the same spreadsheet as you from bigdataball.com, and where I went through, which shows the rest advantage, disadvantage, all that kind of stuff. And I just didn't really think. I read the line, but then I just W or L, right? Just went through it. And I found myself going some stretches with a lot of W's. And like, it was kind of subconscious. Okay, W, W, W. And then I would look up and that's a lot of W's in a row there. That's interesting. Part of it is, again, I keep going back to it, but the Magic play a ton of games against really bad teams this year. And so I think that was part of it. Part of it being there's some long homestands with some winnable games. There's long homestands with difficult games, but the Magic play well at home. So it was definitely an interesting experience. And I definitely came out with a higher number of wins than I expected. Again, it's a first pass. I reserve the right to change it once we get closer to the season. But again, just blindly kind of going through it, I ended up with a definitely a higher number than I expected.
Now, when we went through this, again, because of the NBA Cup, there are 2 games missing from this. So when we give you our numbers in a few minutes here, you could add 2 wins to that. You could add 2 losses to that. We don't really know how all of that is going to break down. But, Kevin, I'll just let you know right now, I have counted how many streaks I have of the Magic winning at least 4 consecutive games in a row. Okay. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 such streaks of the Magic winning at least 4 games in a row.
Wow.
When you look at your schedule and your wins or losses, do you have anything that reflects that at all?
I have 5. I did not count that before this. I'm counting as I'm talking. I believe it's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 plus looks like 3 3-game win streaks. So, right there on the bubble, same thing as you, but
yeah, I have another 2 3-game win streaks.
Okay, so we're pretty close
similar.
then.
And even now, like I said, this was a first pass. As I look at this, I'm like, okay, in a 4-game stretch, that looks kind of crazy. But when I was going through and like racking up the wins, like to me, it made sense. Let's go through some of those like at least 3-game like win stretches that we have, right? So the first one that I have is starting October 28th, where you have the Pacers, the Bulls, and then the Cavaliers. Wow. I like the way that we match up against the Pacers. The Bulls are going to be really bad. And I just think that first game against Cleveland, our guys are going to be looking for a get back. It's going to be on national TV. I've got to believe that we win that game. So that's my first 3-game win streak of the year.
I like it. My first win streak of the year is, what date is this? November 23rd against the Pistons at home. And then it's Pistons, Hornets, Bulls, Nets. That's a 5-game win streak right there that I pretty much locked in.
I have that exact same 5-game win streak as a matter of fact.
Attaboy.
Pistons, Hornets, Bulls, Nets. It's like now that I look at it, like the Magic will probably lose one of those games, right? But as I just look at it on paper, like sure, against Detroit, November 23rd, it's your third game in 4 nights, but it's
after the West Coast trip, by the way.
Right. You got the Pistons at home. You need to win that game. The Hornets, you should beat the Hornets. The Bulls, second night of a back-to-back for them. You should beat the Bulls.
Yep.
The Nets, one of those is a East Group A NBA Cup game. You have to win that one. and then you play them a couple of days later, same place. You're going to be in Brooklyn. Both teams are going to be rested. You should just be able to win that game.
Yep. 100%.
Now, I want to backtrack just a little bit because the stretch starting November 6th, I do know what it is. It's the way that we dismantled the Pacers at times last year. I like the way that we match up against that team. And early in the season, I think we're going to come out of the gates really hot. All this talk since the end of the playoff series against Cleveland, where how important the regular season game is. Like, you have to take these games in November just as serious as you take the games in late March and early April. But Indiana, New Orleans at home, Washington at home, Charlotte's at home, I could see that being a 4-game win streak.
I could, but I have us losing to the Pelicans. So
the Pelicans.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. That's what I have.
A lot of turmoil there in New Orleans. As we noted earlier, going to be a rest disadvantage basically every single game of the year.
Yep.
But no, yeah, definitely losable game. And like I said, as we're going through this, I'm like, okay, could see some losses here. The next win streak that I have, because I have us dropping the first game of the year to the Philadelphia 76ers, but we do have to pick up a win at some point in the year against the Philadelphia 76ers. Actually, I have us winning the first, losing the second, then starting December 6th in Philly, that game, and then I have us winning each of the 3 home games against Phoenix, OKC, and Miami for a 4-game win streak.
I have the exact same 4-game win streak.
I love that. I really love that for us.
So it's going to happen.
I have us losing 2 games in a row before that Philadelphia game.
I do too.
In New York in the last East Group A game. Then the next one in Philadelphia. It's a back-to-back. But then I just feel like our guys are like, no, we're going home, or we're not going home, but we're playing this team again. We have to have a get back, and then we're going home.
Yep.
And then Phoenix, it's going to be their 3rd game in 4 nights. They're coming off a back-to-back. The OKC game, it just feels like we really have to get back at them for last year.
Yeah.
And then Miami, they're coming off of a back-to-back.
Yep. And it's at home.
4th game.
Yep.
So I've got it one there. What's your next one?
My next one is there is a loss to Boston there, but then I turn right back around and start another streak after Boston. Miami, New York, Brooklyn, Detroit, Toronto, and Utah.
Is that a 6-game streak?
That's a 6-game streak.
So
after a 4-game streak, so that gets you 10 out of 11, by the way.
So I've got us dropping to Boston December 23rd at home.
Yep.
Then I have us beating the Heat, but then I do have us losing to the Knicks because that's the second night of a back-to-back for us.
I know, but
then
we've got to
do
beat
have
the Knicks at
next
some
4.
point. We've got to beat the Knicks at some point.
So I think I have us beating the Knicks. Wait, do we only play the Knicks 3 times this year?
Believe that was on my list, yes.
Then I've got us getting swept by the Knicks this year.
See, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do it.
You could sway me, one of those other games, but like you play the Knicks 3 times in the span of a month, pretty much for the entire season. So that's going to be pretty interesting.
Yep.
What about your next streak?
My next streak
I love
starts.
that we're talking about winning streaks, by the way.
That's right.
This is fun.
January 21st in Toronto, which goes Toronto, Portland, Detroit, Miami, Portland on the road, and Utah on the road is my next streak, which is another 6-game win streak.
So I have a 4-game win streak starting the 19th because I feel like you have to split with Denver, right? Like
I don't.
You have us getting swept by Denver.
I have us getting swept by Denver.
Okay,
yep.
That's fair enough. I totally respect that. But I would just like us to see split
well, me
that
too.
series
Yeah,
at
me
least.
too, Jonathan.
So I've got Denver, Toronto, Portland, Detroit. But then I do feel like at some point we are going to lose to Miami. I would be surprised if we completely swept Miami this year.
I have a sweep of Miami, and I'm not afraid to say it.
We can agree to disagree.
Yep.
Now, you and I earlier, we haven't spoken about this portion of the schedule, right? And I think we'll go through some of the larger stretches after we go through this. But this was the point in the schedule that we haven't told each other what is going on, but I think we both have something kind of crazy happening around this point of the season. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-game win streak here in the middle of the schedule. Now, again, first pass, call me a homer, call me incredibly biased, but let me just go through this. So it starts February 8th at home against the San Antonio Spurs. It is our third game in 4 nights. It is also San Antonio's third game in 4 nights, and it happens to be a back-to-back for them. Then on the 10th, we play the Atlanta Hawks. It'll be their third game in 4 nights. Then we play the Hornets 2 days later. It will be their third game in 4 nights. Then we play Atlanta in Atlanta on February 20th. Both teams will be coming off of the All-Star break, so we'll have 3+ days of rest. Then we have Memphis at home. Both teams will be playing the second night of a back-to-back. Then we have the Wizards at home. It will be our third game in 4 nights, but it's the Wizards. We should sweep the Wizards this year.
At home, yeah.
Then we have Cleveland at home. That is going to be a nationally televised game. Then we have the Warriors at home, which I have us losing in Golden State. So I have us splitting the series with them. And then ending the streak with a home game against the Raptors. And I just feel like the Raptors will maybe find a way to win that next one, which will end the streak for us. So I have a fat 9-game win streak in the beginning. Basically, we're going to lose 2 games in February is what I have.
I hate myself for this, Jonathan. I have it as a 10-game win streak.
Oh my! This is bad. This might be our most Homer episode of all time.
I have us winning both of those Toronto games at home before losing to the Bucks. But then, I have us turning right around and beating the Rockets, beating the Bulls, and beating the Timberwolves at Target Center.
See, I have us splitting the season series with the Timberwolves.
Right. I do too.
Winning our home matchup against them. So you have us losing at home to Minnesota.
I'm pretty sure I did. Let me see if I can find that.
So that is January 10th.
Yeah.
Okay. Or January 9th, sorry.
Which is last year we did the same thing. So we won. Yeah, we split it the opposite way. The same way, but the opposite you would think of. So we won on the road last year. But yeah, a 10. We've done this. I mean, I've been part of the show for three preseasons. Or no, this is the 4th one. This is my 4th preseason, I guess. And I don't recall ever putting down a 10-game win streak or anything even close to it. So I'm terrified.
I don't even know where the audacity is coming from for either of us, to be honest.
Well, I think part of it really is the stretch. Like, it's the Spurs, the Hawks, the Hornets, the Hawks, the Grizzlies, the Wizards. Like, that stretch right there, those are bad teams. They should be. And then you turn around.
The only game that I would be like, okay, it makes sense that you lost would be the Grizzlies.
Grizzlies, yeah, back to back. I should have clarified. Yes, they were bad last year. Memphis will definitely be better. However, it is still home. It's at home. You're coming off, playing in Atlanta the night before. It's not a crazy turnaround. I don't know. And then you have the Cavs and you have the Warriors. Those are the 2 toughest games in that stretch to me. But then the Raptors twice. Like, it's just to me, it's a very, very winnable stretch. Do I think the Magic are going to go 10-0 in that stretch? Probably not. But that's what I put down there. So for right now, I'm going to roll with it, and we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, that was my 10-game stretch there.
So I have my last big stretch of the season. I have a 6-game win streak starting on March 17th, playing San Antonio in San Antonio. It will be our 3rd game in 4 nights and the second night of a back-to-back. It'll be San Antonio's 3rd game in 4 nights. Then we have a day off. We travel back home to take on Houston. It would be our 3rd game in 4 nights, but again, I feel like we should beat Houston. Then you go on the road to Washington, come back home to take on the Lakers. Then you have a back-to-back home for the Lakers. Then you travel to Charlotte to take on the Hornets. And then you come home and you have the Dallas Mavericks, which is both teams' 3rd game in 4 nights. I have us losing to the Lakers in LA and splitting the season series with the Dallas Mavericks. I feel like a few of the games in this stretch could go either way, but on paper, I feel like we should be able to get some of these.
Yeah, so this is the stretch where you and I differ the most, I think, because I do have us losing the game before that in Cleveland, and then I have us losing to San Antonio and losing to Houston for a 3-game losing streak there before going to Washington and beating the Wizards, and then beating the Lakers at home, and then beating the Hornets as well. So a little bit of a different stretch there. But yeah, I think any of that stuff is possible. What I'm finding now as we're talking about this, Jonathan, another thing that could potentially be really beneficial for this team, I'd have to go back and look at it, but the back-to-backs that we do have, I feel like we're saying a lot of the back-to-back, the second half of the back-to-backs are against winnable teams in the second half of the season. The first half is not.
Or the other team is also on a back-to-back.
Correct, yeah. The first few back-to-backs, the second half back-to-backs that we have, is Memphis, OKC, Indiana, and the Lakers and the Sixers. So all those stink. And then the next one's the Knicks. Yeah, so all those stink. Okay, the next one's the Bucks. All those stink. But coming down to the second half of the season, it's the Spurs, it's the Hornets, Grizzlies are in there too. So there's a few of the second night of back-to-backs that are really winnable, but the last one is the Celtics, so that stinks. But one thing that I'm gonna kind of delay our unveiling of our record really quick.
Well, I do want to go through like what we think are going to be the biggest losing stretches as well before we get to the records.
Fine.
I did want to say I do have us ending the season on a 3-game win streak against the Celtics, the Pacers, and Hawks.
I do not.
That's fair.
I have us,
taking some losses to the Celtics, but I feel like at some point this year, we have had success against them. It's at home. It's the fan appreciation night. It'll be the last home game of the year. So if you're going to beat Boston at all, like that is going to be.
Oh, I have us winning that game. I just have us losing in Indiana.
Pacers?
I think we're going to lose. It's going to be a battle in the third game in 4 nights. I know it's their back-to-back, but that's just what I have. So,
I know
losing streaks.
You mentioned that you have a 3-game losing streak. I didn't realize this as I was going through and doing it, but looking at it now, I don't have us losing more than 2 games in a row all season.
Oh, Jonathan. Wow. Okay, I have more than 1 3-game losing streak. I think I only have 2 though, so maybe that's not that good. But
I hope it matches up like next to one of my 2-game losing streaks.
Right. So my 3-game losing streaks, one's at the very beginning of the season, the November 1st in Cleveland, and then Dallas and OKC. All those 3 road games. So I have us
losing Dallas and OKC. So yes, you're just like the beginning part of that.
Right. And then my other 3-game losing streak is also with Cleveland on the 16th of March. And so that's the Cleveland, San Antonio, Houston 3-game losing streak.
Okay, so I have us losing to Minnesota and Cleveland, but beating the Bulls before that stretch and beating the Spurs after that. So again, like we're the areas of the schedule where we think that we could probably add some losses. I think we're pretty much similar there. So give me your record.
Before I give you my record, Jonathan, I did want to say something we haven't talked about yet. Again, I'm just like, I'm holding the bait. Like we're teasing at this point. We haven't talked about, I don't think we talked about it here on the show. We talked about it on the Patreon Zoom call. As I was looking through this, I was reminded we haven't talked about the home back-to-backs. I'm just going to plug these really fast because these are crazy. Like we only had a couple last year. This year we have 4 and they're all really, really spicy. Okay. In November, we play the Hornets and Pacers a home back-to-back. Hornets, you say, they're terrible. Yeah, they are, but that's the first NBA Cup game, so that's important. Hornets, Pacers back-to-back. December, we already talked about this one. Miami, New York, back-to-back. Home back-to-back. That's crazy. January, Minnesota and Milwaukee home back-to-back, which is crazy. And then April, it's the Hawks and the Celtics home back-to-back. So 4 home back-to-backs. All of them are going to be awesome. That's going to be really fun. Yeah, those home back-to-backs are my favorite. Okay. You want to know my record now?
Sure.
Before I tell you my... No, I was kidding.
Hey, we didn't... No, real quick. We didn't talk about the road trip at all.
Yeah. Do you want to do that first?
We don't really... Okay, we spoiler, we don't know where we're going.
Yeah, we don't know.
But we're going to continue to evaluate over the course of the next couple of months here. I don't think we're going to book anything... months and months in advance. And with everything that's going on with Kevin, he's really not going to be able to travel until like pretty much January. So that takes care of, almost half of the schedule there for us. If it's feeling like there's a good chance it could be Washington. We're looking at Washington.
March 21st.
March 21st. That's Friday or
it is a
Thursday
Friday
or Friday, Saturday, something like that. So, yeah, we like doing those like towards the end of the week so it sort of feeds into the weekend. I've never been in the D.C. area. But, we asked this a few weeks ago. But if, you're, somewhere one of these road cities and you want to sell us on going there, it look basically like start of January through the rest of the year. We also don't want to get like too close to the end of the year because there's also like playoff stuff that's going to be going on. So, that's the update on that.
Yeah. So, my number... right now is I want to give a shout out to between 60 and 70 of you that have been watching this nonstop here on YouTube. That's my number because we didn't plan this, really. We didn't announce this. We didn't, broadcast this. We didn't, publicize this. And we just said, hey, we're going live in 15 minutes. And the fact that there's been like between 60 and 70 of you on here the entire time is pretty crazy. So glad to have Magic Maniacs back in attendance. And now, the number that I came up with, Jonathan, and I hate myself for it because this goes against what I shared a couple episodes ago. My number is 55.
My number is 56. Mm-hmm. Which just feels absolutely ridiculous to say.
Yeah.
Like when I say it out loud, I'm like, oh, surely there's no way that we win 56 games. And if I went back through the schedule, probably would add a few losses. But I felt pretty confident before the schedule came out. But as long as the Magic are able to stay healthy, and we know that's the biggest if with this team, but if they can pick up the momentum and sort of start where they left off last year, and they can have this renewed sense of focus about games earlier in the regular season and getting off to a hot start, this team, winning 52 plus games, I think is not a homer take. I don't think it's a biased take. Like, I think it is incredibly realistic, especially the way that the schedule breaks down.
Yeah, and I got on this show, I don't know how long it was ago, a couple weeks now, excuse me, and I said 50 wins was my number. And I think that's probably more, potentially more accurate than 55. I think there's a lot of those stretches against bad teams or maybe stretches that I saw tonight that I think are very winnable where the Magic are going to drop a game. It's the NBA, things happen. And so I think the 50 is probably more realistic. But I feel after looking at this, I've warmed up more to the idea of something closer to 55 than I was. Like I said, just a couple weeks ago, I was rolling my eyes at people that said 55. I think with this schedule that the NBA has gifted us, which again, I believe it is a gift, I think that has warmed me up to the idea more than it was. Now, again, games aren't won or lost on paper, right? So the Magic still have to go do the dang thing, with this schedule that has been given to them. But I think it's possible. I think 55 games or somewhere in that range is possible, and that's pretty stinking crazy.
And remember, this is 55 and 56 games out of 80.
Right.
And for a team that we're expecting to finish quite a bit over 500, it's not unrealistic to say, okay, well, we can just add another win to whatever our total was based off the fact that we're going to have 2 more games, right?
Right.
I think where I'm going to lock in officially is my prediction is going to be that the Magic win 52 games.
That's what I was literally thinking. Split the difference between my 55 and my 50 and go 52. Yeah.
Which is absolutely crazy, which should be good enough for the 2 or 3 seed in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. I still say I don't know. It's hard. We talked about this earlier with our patrons. Like, it's hard because the top section of the East, and we'll spend tons of time getting ready for the season talking about this stuff, but really briefly, you have the Celtics obviously at 1. I do think the Knicks will be number 2. And then after that, it's interesting. You got the Sixers there. Who knows what they're going to look like with Paul George? Who knows how many games Paul George and Embiid are going to play together? Then you have, the Cavs. You have the Bucks. What's Dame going to look like? There's a lot of question marks there. And so I think it could be a real dogfight for spots 3 through 6. Well, Indiana's in there too, maybe 3 through 7. I think we're better than Indiana. I think we'll have a better record than Indiana. So I tend to think we might be more in that Cleveland range, potentially Milwaukee, depending on how good or bad they are. But yeah, I think it's going to be a real dogfight. Basically 3 through 7. Every game's going to be important. We know how important home court advantage is now. These guys know it. And so all of that combined, I think this team's going to really go for it. Really quick, Jonathan, before you give your thoughts on that, we do have another super chat from Sam. He says January 21 through March 4, Orlando going 17-2 is what Sam says, which would be a ludicrous streak, but I'm here for it.
I mean, I think I have us going, I guess, what would that be, 15-4 in that stretch if I'm looking at what's in front of me here. So I don't think that's unrealistic at all. Yeah, like you said, it feels like New York, I feel pretty confident that they're going to be right there, 1, most likely 2. But, yes, they added Mikal Bridges and they have, the Nova Knicks there. But there are real question marks about how Julius Randle is going to fit with that core. Now that he's going to be back healthy. No Isaiah Hartenstein. Mitchell Robinson has had a lot of issues staying healthy. If he goes down again, what does that do really for their center rotation? So I think there's real questions there. But with Philadelphia, Joel Embiid can't ever stay healthy. Paul George has struggled to stay healthy, obviously. He's another year older. I don't think you can discount the possibility of Milwaukee just having another down year. I know from most people's perspectives, they had a down year last year, but Chris Middleton is another year older. He struggled to stay healthy recently. Brooke Lopez is 36 years old. How much does he have left in the tank? Damian Lillard, as great as he's been, he is 34 years old. Yes, people will turn around and say, well, Steph Curry is 36 years old. Steph doesn't rely on his athleticism the way that Damian Lillard does, and I don't know that anybody would try to argue that Damian Lillard's ever been as good as Steph. So I do think there's a possibility that Milwaukee, falls short of expectations yet again this year. And I don't think a team like Cleveland really took big improvements roster-wise and talent-wise. Yes, they swapped out J.B. Bickerstaff for Kenny Atkinson. That's probably worth a few wins there. But I think the Magic, the only difference for me last year in that playoff series was the lack of experience and the fact that Cleveland had one more home game than we did. If that's flipped, I really feel like the Magic advanced in that series. And again, I think we're better than Indiana. So I don't think I'm going to be shocked if 8 months from now we're sitting here and the Magic finish the regular season as the 3 seed. I don't even know that I'll be shocked if we finish as the 2 seed because of the things that could go wrong with New York.
Right.
Like Tom Thibodeau is going to run those guys into the ground. And Mikal Bridges, who has been one of the most durable guys in the NBA since entering the league, like that durability is absolutely going to be tested. And can Jalen Brunson stay healthy with the load that he's been given the last couple of years? And Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson, who hasn't played a ton in the last year or so. So there's a lot of question marks. But the one thing that I feel super confident about, the Magic are going to be right there in the conversation. I think I will be slightly disappointed if the Magic don't have home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs, and I think that they should win 52 games this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they win 55 games this year.
Yeah, which, again, before tonight even, as we did this exercise, I would have been surprised at 55 games. But tonight, I am less surprised after looking at the whole season as it's laid out, and I think I wouldn't say it's probable, but I do think it is definitely possible. And again, more so than I thought just, mere hours ago.
Yeah, I don't think you can really underestimate the impact that a schedule can have on the roster. And just from like the level of like playing with confidence, like if you're able to pick up 4 or 5 games in a row and you're going into, a game against Cleveland at home or the Golden State Warriors or whoever, like you have so much swagger and confidence and momentum that you're playing with at that time. It's just like, okay, we just keep doing what we've been doing. And like, that's how win streaks happen is that you just, when you're playing with that confidence and that belief, I mean, that basketball, that is such a big part of the game. So,
especially at home, because that's one of the reasons why my number was so high. The number of games that I felt like that was possible because there was a big home game in that stretch. It's huge because we know like the energy of this city, if the team's on a win streak, I mean, we saw, especially last November, it's a fortress, right? And so if, like you said, Magic pick up a couple, even if it's a really, 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 really big, good opponent at home, I like the Magic's chances just as much as anyone if we have momentum. So yeah, sign me up for it.
And the Magic won 29 games at home last year. They were 29-12, and the Magic should be even better this year.
I think
Like,
so.
we're talking about 52 games. It's only 5 games more than last year, and they went 18-23 on the road.
Right.
Like, you flip that around, you go 23-18 on the road, and we're there. So I don't think that's unreasonable at all. Yeah, sure. Are we coming across as like the biggest homers of all time? Maybe, but it seems like from what I'm looking at the chat, there we have a lot of homers and Magic maniacs riding with us tonight.
Soul Train with the super chat said it's refreshing that the Magic can be buyers later. I mean, that's a whole different conversation that we'll have to have at some point. But the idea of the Magic, if the Magic are really good and there's a good player available, the Magic could be buyers. If the Magic are maybe right on that bubble that we're talking about, as far as maybe bubble for home court or bubble for even, staying out of the play-in, who knows where the Magic could be, that they could definitely be buyers at the deadline. Again, that could be a whole show in and of itself later on. But yeah, Soul Train, definitely a conversation that will continue going through the season.
All right, Kev, we're an hour 10 plus into this talking about the schedule here. We always tend to go a bit longer than I think we're going to, but I really don't have anything else. I mean, I'm sure we'll have other nuggets that'll come to us over the course of the next few days, and we want to hear your guys' predictions as well. So if you're in the chat or you're watching this later, drop a comment below. Let us know your prediction for the Magic schedule this year.
Yeah, and the only bit of non-schedule news, Kevon Harris got a
I knew
training
that was
camp.
coming.
Yeah, you got to say it. Kevon Harris got a training camp contract with the Los Angeles Clippers. Gets to go check out their new facilities over there at the Intuit Dome and their team facilities there, which I hear are amazing. And so I'll be rooting for him. I assume all Magic fans will. Everybody loves Kevon. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what he does with the Clippers. Hopefully he makes the team. And yeah, keep our former players in the Western Conference so they can't hurt us.
Well, thank you guys for joining the show. Again, the 60 to 70 of you that have hung out for the last hour plus. And thanks again to our boy Tony Quinn for joining the show. We'll be back with another episode on Monday, but that is going to do it for this one. For Kevin Tucker, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!